Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the WPS podcast. That is Why People Suck. My name is Celia, and I'm joined by my co host, best friend, and sister, Alejandra.
Hi, everyone. Glad to be back for another episode where we call out all the ways people are super annoying and talk about what we can actually do about it. We say it so you don't have to. Today, we're kind of piggybacking off of the conversation that we had last week about bad coworkers, and we're taking it up a notch and talking about bad managers or bad bosses.
Yeah, exactly. I think we touched on a little bit about bad managers in our last episode, but this definitely deserves its own episode because there are lots of stories here and bad experiences. So,
Yeah, I mean, there's even a whole movie about it. There's actually a movie and a sequel on it called Horrible Bosses. I love those movies. So relatable.
I know. Awesome. So, to get started, do you have anything you want to kick us off
I
with?
feel like you should start with examples because you mentioned that you've had some really good examples of bad managers. I've been pretty lucky in that I've had some pretty good bosses. So I want to hear what your take is on all of this and also hear some really hilarious, I'm sure, hilarious examples.
Okay, yeah, sounds good to me. I do have some bad experiences, unfortunately. So I think I'm going to start with the more mild ones and then we're going to move on to the worst, most toxic ones. So, out of college, my first job I had, we got along pretty well. It was just me and my boss. It was a very small office. But the one thing about him that I thought was really weird was he would kind of get upset if I left on time. I could tell from the tone of voice of how he said goodnight. Like, if I left after my 8 hours, he'd be like, okay then. And then if I would stay like an extra hour or so, he'd be like, great, have a good night. Or if I stayed even longer, right, he'd be like, have a great evening. And in my head, I'm thinking, what evening? It's gone. I don't have an evening anymore. And just that, I noticed it. It wasn't just once, it was every single time I started taking note of it. And just, yeah, I just thought that was really weird because it was just, his practice. So I guess that's why it was so important to him. But I'm just an employee. I mean, I'm doing my work in my 8 hours and I'm there and I'm doing everything. And I think, well, he never had any complaints about my work or me or my attitude or anything.
Or getting your deadlines, right? Or hitting
Uh,
your deadlines and getting your work done.
yeah, never had any issues with that. But yeah, I definitely did notice that. And it did make me nervous sometimes. If someone has a little bit of a different tone with me, I notice it immediately and I'm like, is he mad at me? What did I do?
Yeah.
So that did actually make me nervous, even though it was a very, very small thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Also, I want to talk about that. I feel like if you've put in your 8 hours, it's not reasonable to expect for somebody to stay over or to stay late to get the work done. Like you cannot get upset with people about that. You can't get upset with your employees about that. That's not reasonable. You cannot do that. I feel like it's so unfair to put that on employees. And like I get it. This guy, it was his practice. Well, then he has to carry the practice. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to get your job done and meet your deadlines. You're not supposed to stay there just twirling your thumbs around for an extra hour just to make it look like you care more. Like that doesn't mean that you care more. It just means that you're very good at time management, which is actually a plus. You should not be penalized for being able to get your work done in the amount of hours that you have to work that you're getting paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. I've also had experiences where bosses or managers, you tell them that you have concerns about the amount of work or deadlines that the team has, or you see problems coming up and then they don't listen to you, and then they panic at the end, and then they make the whole team work late, overtime, things like that. Instead of making a plan and being more organized as a team and as a manager, then you're putting all this extra pressure on your team and you're expecting them to stay late, not knowing or not caring about the fact that the salary difference is huge, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you're a manager, you make more money and you shouldn't expect other people to be working as late or as hard if you're not in the same level. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's true. And I mean, the reason why you're getting more money is because you have more responsibility. So more responsibility falls on your shoulders as a manager to get stuff done.
Yeah, and some people just should not be managers because people get promoted to be managers just because they're doing their job well or something, but it doesn't mean that they're actually good at planning, resourcing, and helping people grow.
Yeah, it's true. Or being a good team player or knowing how to properly plan a project that requires a lot of resources and a lot of employees to work together.
Yeah, I had a manager once where I would have a lot of questions about what I was doing, obviously. So then I would message her on Teams and then I'd try to call her to ask questions. She would never answer. She wouldn't even look at my messages. And I was nervous because I wasn't getting my work done at the standard that I wanted it to be or as fast as I wanted it to be because I wasn't getting the help and input and information. And that is, that wasn't the only time I had an issue, this particular issue. I had this with another manager too. So this just shows like some people are not built to be managers. And this other guy, he would never respond, never trained me. Sometimes I would be like, okay, the client asked this, what should I say? Because I don't know everything that's going on with other departments, how we're doing with delivering a product. And he would just be like, don't respond. Or he would say, I'll take care of it. And then he never would. And then I'm the person who is in charge of that client and communicating with them. So it was my integrity on the line. And that was just really crappy. Actually, I ended up leaving this place. And this was one of those reasons, just because they never told me what I could say to the clients. At one time, they got angry at me for responding to something too, and it was just not a good environment at all.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. It sounds like really bad management. The previous one that we were talking about, that's like the vanishing act manager that only shows up when like everything's done and they're like, okay, I'm here to take all the credit. Or like if something goes wrong and then
Yeah.
they're like, well, why did everything go wrong? What happened? I had nothing to do with this. Or like only like when leadership is watching and they're like, oh yes, I'm such a dedicated manager. I really, really care, but you haven't even been there the whole time. So it's just an act.
Oh my gosh, I have another manager. So this is already manager 4. This was a guy, I liked him so much. He was a really nice guy. He was very fun. But after work, he would go off to the pub for a couple of hours, have a drink or whatever it was with other people, like different teams. And then the team would work late. So then he would come back from the pub and then sit at his desk for like another hour when we'd already been there like 2 or 3 hours. And then we'd all go home and it would seem like he had also been working. He was nice to me and like the team and stuff, and he gave me good performance reviews, so I liked him in that sense. But it was like, wow, some people get promoted just for being like a nice person and a nice
Mhm.
guy and being liked by leadership, which I hate because I just can't hide my emotions on my face. I actually had one of my colleagues, I was in a meeting with her and our boss, and he was saying something about a product that we were delivering, and my face was just, you could tell I was like, this is so stupid. My colleague after the meeting was like, I was dying at your face. And I was like, oh no. So I would never be able to be promoted as a manager based on just personality. I value actually getting stuff done. And apparently in this world, that does not matter.
It's so funny though. Man, okay, no, but that manager sounds hilarious. He would just go to the pub, get drunk, and then come back and be like, yes, I've been here the whole time. And he's feeling good. And it's like, woo. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, and one of my friends who still works there said that she was on a project with him recently, and he asked to work from home one day, and apparently he only got like 2 pages done in the whole presentation, and they had a call, and he was like drinking wine, and he was like, "What? It's Friday." So, yeah,
Hey, if you set a meeting at 4:30, that's okay.
yeah, funny, funny.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny.
Yeah, so I liked him,
Yeah.
but then it's a problem when the person is, oh, well, like their personality sucks. So that one manager that I was talking about that he never responded, he was also very manipulative. I don't have an example for myself because I'm very reserved. I try not to talk about myself much. And also, I was warned by colleagues when I joined this company,
Wow.
like, be very careful what you say. And I was like, okay, because the management, not just this manager, but the seniors and stuff, they would try to pretend to be your friend, like at the pub or even at work, and pretend to be nice and get information out of you and then use it against you. I have like two examples I can think about. One of my colleagues who she said that she can get very stressed or emotional. So this manager once brought it up again when she said something related to work, like we can't really deliver this in this amount of time, and he was like, I know you can get very emotional, but you need to set that aside and think about like the deadline or whatever. It's just I don't remember exactly what it was, but the point is that he brought this back up as a way to use it against her, even though she hadn't done anything to prove that she wasn't working well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's messed up.
And he did that to another guy too. So that was just really not good, the way that he treated people. And one time he also yelled at, well, actually many times, but this one time that I remember specifically, he was explaining something at the I wasn't in that meeting, but he was like talking in the office. It was open floor plan. And he was explaining something, and one guy raised his hand and asked a question, and he was like, effing keep up. He got angry. He would let his stress take over, and it was just a really vile environment.
Yeah, sounds really
Yeah.
unprofessional.
Definitely. So I would say, like, as advice after being there, it's like never share anything about you
Yeah.
with management or even like colleagues that you don't know very well, because I've seen that people use it against you. And I follow this one recruiter online. I like him, and he talks about this all the time. Like, people try to make you feel comfortable and you want that. Like, wouldn't it be great in a world where we could be friends with people at work, but you just really have to watch your back.
Yeah, you do. I've made some good friends at work that I'm still friends with, but for the most part, I don't really share a whole lot of my personal life with people. It's unfortunate, but you never know when
Yeah.
they're going to use it against you.
Yeah. That is sad. But same here. I have friends from work that I've made at different workplaces, and we've remained friends. It's just having, I guess, discernment and knowing.
Yeah. Do you have any other examples?
I have another story about a manager who never stood up for the team. I think that's another problem that probably a lot of people have, because it's really annoying. Like, again, I liked this manager. He was very nice, he was very smart, he would teach us things, but he would never stand up for us to, you know, seniors and his managers. But this was a environment where it was pretty toxic, so I'm assuming he was also scared for his own job. So it was just not a great place to be, where you tell your manager things that aren't working and there's nothing that he can really do about it, or he just doesn't bring it up because he's also scared that it's going to affect his role and his position. So that was really sucky, because I would ask him, like, for example, I asked about a raise because I had been there for quite a long time, and he said he was going to bring it up with management, because that's the way you have to do, right? Like, you talk to your manager first. And I actually don't even know if he ever brought it up. I'm not sure, because when I finally left that place, like, I brought up some things and they were like, oh, that's news to me. But the thing is, I don't know. There was no transparency there. So it was also a bad situation
Yeah, that's
there.
not, oh, that's terrible when your manager doesn't even stick up for you. That has to be terrible. I mean, that is where a toxic environment starts, is when you can't even have a free conversation or an open conversation with your manager. I mean, if you can't be honest in the workplace about things, especially when things are going wrong, not just when things are going well, That's a problem. It's a big problem.
This place also had terrible HR. Well, first of all, I think
Yeah.
everyone who works in HR is awful. But this was the worst experience I had with HR. I don't know if they deserve their own episode too, because a lot of friends have told me stories of their workplaces with HR. Just, they're the absolute worst. What is wrong with those people? I think they have to select psychopaths. Like, you have to pass a psychopath test to become HR, is what I think.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. They are the worst. I've never worked anywhere where I was like, wow, HR is so helpful and they're so good and they actually have your back. No, they don't. They don't have your back at all. Talk about not telling them anything.
Mm-mm.
Jeez.
They just tell you that it's your fault or they
Mm-hmm.
gaslight you. And this happened to a lot of my other colleagues too. And at that place, I was friends with the person who worked under HR. They weren't really HR, but he would tell me that he'd be late like 2 minutes and she would dock him like 2 minutes on his timesheet, or 7 minutes or five or
Oh my
whatever. And
gosh.
it's just like she never saw all the overtime that he did and things like that. It was just
Oh my
so
gosh.
stupid. And I remember he ended up quitting and she tried to get him to leave early without pay because it was like she was saying, oh, it's more convenient for you to leave this date because someone else is leaving too, so we could do the party or whatever. And he was like, okay, but you do need to pay me my full, garden leave or whatever it is. I can't remember what
Yeah.
you call it. And she was like, oh, but wouldn't you want to leave instead earlier?
No, I like
And he
money.
was like, again, I will leave, but you have to pay me. And it was just so hilarious. Well, awful, but hilarious. He stood his ground. In the end, they did
Okay.
pay him, but they did this to another girl who left, and she just left and didn't get the money because she was really young and inexperienced. So you really have to watch your back, know your
Mhm.
rights, and fight for what is right because they
Yeah,
can't
stand up
do
for
that.
yourself.
That's illegal, I'm
Mhm.
pretty.
Yeah. That's crazy though. Yeah, no, HR does deserve its own episode. They are something else. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone be like, I think, well, I already said this, but yeah, I've never heard of anyone saying that they really love working with HR. I absolutely hate working with our HR department. They are horrible. And everyone says this.
Yeah, they are the absolute
Yeah.
worst. And this reminds me of a friend at a different company who she's had a lot of toxic managers there, and it's just a terrible place to work. She ended up getting like a union rep to come to one of the meetings and something, and I was thinking maybe that's a good idea to join a union or something. Even if you're, because I think at least here in the UK they have a union that is for like professionals. You don't have to be like a
Uh-huh.
trade or something that we mostly associate with unions. No, there's one for
Oh.
everyone. And she joined it, and it ended up being very helpful because she was feeling like, oh my goodness, like, am I just making stuff up? Like, because they
Oh yeah.
gaslight you. And then her union rep showed up and she was, shocked by the things that they were saying and doing. And then she felt validated, like having someone external be like, yeah, like everything they're trying to do
Uh-huh.
is wrong.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy, but I'm glad that that exists. I don't think that exists here. I mean, there's unions for certain people in the US, but not for just everybody.
Mm.
It's supposed to be HR. That's supposed to be their job. They're supposed to
Yeah.
defend you, the employee, but they don't. They absolutely don't.
No, they care about the
Mhm.
company, not you.
Yeah. And kind of on that, I hate it when managers and bosses say, we're a family. Oh my gosh, that makes me so mad. You are not my family. I do not like you. I am forced to be here. If I had a choice, I would not be here.
Yeah. Don't they say if a company says you're a family, it's definitely a toxic
Yes.
place?
Yes. That is not a family I want to be a part of.
Red flag. That's a red flag. Do not join a company that calls themselves a
No.
family.
Because then what they're saying is like, we're going to have dinner together and breakfast, and we're going to spend weekends together and lunchtime. No, no. Run for the hills.
Yes, no, thank you. And also, other things, since we're talking about bad managers and bosses, writing everything down is so important because you need to have evidence if things go sideways.
Yeah.
You know, if a manager doesn't defend you, or if they don't listen to your concerns, or if you bring up issues about a project and they don't do anything about it, you need to have a record. Emails or something, I don't know, just make sure that you do that to protect yourself because there are some very sneaky managers out there. And hopefully, you don't ever have to work with one or work with one again if you have in the past. But yeah, make sure you protect yourself.
Yeah, for sure. That's really good advice. I've always heard this story from people that I've worked with where like they'll get a performance evaluation and there'll be bad things on there and it'll be things that they've never heard before, that no one has ever mentioned to them that what they were doing was a problem, and now all of a sudden it's in writing and it's in your record now. I think that's terrible. That hasn't happened to me, but if that happened to me, I would be so mad. And I would immediately go back and be like, you never told me about this. And actually, as a manager, I do performance evaluations. And if I get feedback that is negative and is like around a performance evaluation period, I won't do the performance evaluation. I'll just say, look, this is the feedback that came back. You need to work on that before I can do your next evaluation. And you have X amount of time to either fix it or whatever. And like probably like 6 months or something. And then I'll do the evaluation. And at that point, if I'm getting the same feedback, well, then that's your fault because you didn't fix it, but I did tell you about it. But I think it's so messed up to bring stuff up in a performance evaluation that you've never even mentioned to the employee. That's not fair. That doesn't even give them a chance because sometimes people do stuff and they don't even realize that they're doing it or that it's annoying or that it's not right because sometimes you don't get trained well. As I could tell you that.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's a great one to bring up. And actually, one of the managers I mentioned, the one that didn't respond to my messages, I know I said two of them, but like the first one, who that was the only problem I had with that specific one, she did that too. Like she brought something up in a performance review, but I was there and I just spoke up and I was like, wait a minute, because I've asked you for help and I have proof that
Oh,
you
good.
didn't. So
Good. See, keeping
yeah.
keeping proof.
Yeah.
Keep the receipts, people. You mentioned like that one HR person that would dock the person 2 minutes if they were 2 minutes late. There's people like that are just micromanaging. It's like, come on, just because somebody's 5 minutes late, like whatever, who cares? Stop being such a micromanager. You clearly don't have enough to do
Yeah.
if you're worrying about that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. I had a manager like that, but she wasn't like that with me. She was only like that with certain people in the group. It was so weird. I mean, I'm glad that she wasn't like that with me, but with some people, she was like, you took an extra 3 minutes for lunch. So now you have to make that up at the end of the day.
This is another important one to touch on, actually. Favoritism. Managers who have favorites. That's really
Yeah.
crappy. That's a bad
Yeah.
manager.
It is a bad manager. I've always been on the, luckily on the good end there, but if I was on the bad end, I would have, I would have some stories, I'm sure, but ugh. Yeah. I've seen it happen to other people and it's just so weird. I'm like, why do you suddenly just like one person and not the other person, even though they're doing very similar work? I don't understand it.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Great. I think we touched on a lot of bad stories of horrible bosses. And hopefully, we've given a little bit of helpful advice if you ever encounter a situation with a bad manager. But now we'd love to hear from our listeners. If you have any stories with bad managers, let us know. How did you handle it? And hoping that you're in a better situation now. Thanks for listening. We said it so you didn't have to. We'll see you next time.